The moment my mother forgot my birthday for a ridiculous reason, it felt like my world shattered. After years of being overlooked, that casual indifference sliced right through me, and I knew I couldn't pretend everything was okay anymore. You know, it all started years ago. I was always the quiet one in the family, not really by choice, but just, that's how it was. My brother? He was the golden child. The one who could do no wrong. He was smart, charming, a natural athlete. Every eye, every compliment, every piece of praise went to him. Meanwhile, I felt like I was constantly trying, constantly striving, and it was never, ever enough. Our house was all about appearances. My parents were obsessed with what other people thought. If they could throw a nice dinner party, wear the right clothes, and present this image of a perfect family, that's all that truly mattered. We weren't poor, but we weren't rolling in money either. They worked hard, but there was always this underlying competition, especially between me and my brother. He could talk his way out of anything. I was the one who kept my head down, did my homework, stayed out of trouble. You'd think that would be enough, right? I honestly thought that if I just stayed quiet, did my part, they'd eventually notice me. They never did. And then there were the birthdays. Oh my God, the birthdays. It really started when I was about 10. For my brother, it was always this huge production. Massive cakes, piles of presents, balloons everywhere. For me, a quiet dinner, maybe a card, and a mumbled, "Happy birthday," from the family. It's not like I wanted a huge party. I just wanted to feel like I mattered, you know? Like I was worth celebrating. As time went on, I got used to it. I figured maybe they're just busy. Maybe they just don't know how to celebrate me. That was until my 18th birthday. That was different. I genuinely thought things would change. I was finally turning into an adult. I was finishing high school, heading off to college soon. I had done everything they'd ever asked of me. So, this year had to be different. I remember walking into the living room that morning, feeling genuinely excited, expecting just a little more attention. Nothing. No cake, no presents, no decorations. My mom was on the phone, totally engrossed. My dad was tinkering in the garage as usual. And my brother? Nowhere to be found. I didn't say anything at first. But when my mom finally hung up, I quietly asked, "Are we doing anything for my birthday today?" She looked at me, paused, and then said, "Oh, right. It's today, isn't it? We'll get you something later. We're just waiting for your brother to get back from his game. He's got a big tournament today, you know." My heart absolutely sank. That was the first real, deep sting of feeling invisible. A simple, "happy birthday," would have been enough. Just a little recognition. But no. My brother's game was more important. I let it slide. After all, I was used to it by then. But this time, something inside me snapped. I spent the rest of the day by myself, just reflecting on everything. All the little moments that added up to this crushing feeling. The times I felt like I was living in a shadow. That night, my brother came home, bragging about how well he'd done at the tournament. My parents, of course, made a huge deal out of it. I sat there quietly, not wanting to make a scene, but I couldn't help it. I finally blurted out, "I guess I'll just make my own birthday cake then." The look on my mother's face was pure confusion. "What? Why would you do that?" And that was it. That's when I realized no one cared. Not really. It wasn't that they didn't love me, but it was crystal clear they weren't interested in celebrating my achievements. They were too wrapped up in my brother's. From that point forward, birthdays became a sore subject. I stopped expecting anything from them. I stopped hoping for some kind of attention or recognition. After a few more years of disappointment, I learned to just keep my head down and move on. But silently in my mind, I kept track. Each year they skipped. Each time they ignored me. And each time my brother was celebrated. Fast forward to this year. My 25th birthday. I figured I'd learned my lesson not to expect anything, so I kept it low-key. My brother was visiting from out of town, he just moved back after working abroad, and my parents had planned this big family dinner to welcome him back. They told me about it a few days ahead of time. Honestly, I wasn't excited, but it was family, so I showed up. I went through the motions, put on a smile, tried to ignore that familiar pang of disappointment in my chest. I arrived at the house. Same old scene. Fancy dinner spread out. My parents already seated. My brother laughing with my mom, already soaking up the spotlight. I smiled, said my hellos, and sat down. I'd already come to terms with the fact that my birthday wasn't going to be a big deal. I didn't even expect a cake. But then, as we sat down to eat, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I smiled, trying to make light of the situation, and asked, "Did you remember my birthday?" The room fell silent for a moment. My mother blinked, looking genuinely confused. "Oh, was that today?" she said. Her voice was so casual, so indifferent. My heart dropped right into my stomach. She paused for a moment, then quickly added, "We're celebrating your brother's new haircut." My brother, sitting right beside her, actually smirked, clearly pleased with the attention. The worst part? He looked at me, grinning like he was the center of the universe, as if he didn't even register how hurtful that was. I stared at my mother, then at my brother. My throat tightened, but I couldn't bring myself to say a single word. I stood up. The weight of everything all those years suddenly crashed down on me. Without a word, I turned and walked away. I could feel my heart sinking with every step. It wasn't about the haircut. It wasn't even about my birthday anymore. It was about the fact that I had been overlooked again, ignored again. And somehow, in that exact moment, I realized I'd finally had enough. A few days later, I sent them a message. It was simple, but it was loaded with all the emotion I'd been holding in for years. I'm not sure what I expected them to do with it, but I needed them to see how it felt. How it had felt for so long. How much it hurt. I didn't hear back immediately. But then my phone buzzed one afternoon. My mother had sent a text. I opened it and my heart stopped. She said, "We need to talk." The message was short, but the tone was unmistakable. They'd seen it. They'd read what I wrote. And now they were going to have to deal with the consequences. To be honest, a part of me was hoping they would just leave it alone. That they would ignore it, just like they had ignored me for all those years. But I knew they wouldn't. I knew the moment they saw my message, they would feel obligated to do something about it. That's just how my family worked. If it wasn't about appearances, it didn't matter. But if it was about fixing the image they had of themselves as good parents, then they would act. I let a whole day go by, mostly to let my emotions settle. I didn't want to snap at them in anger. I wanted to be calm when I responded. But by the time I finally replied, I could feel the tension building inside me. I sent a simple message back. I don't need a big celebration or grand gestures. I just want to know I matter. I've spent years being ignored while everything has been about him, and I can't take it anymore. I want to be seen for once. I hit send. And then, immediately, I regretted it. Was I being too harsh? I had always been the quiet one, the one who never spoke up. But now, after everything, I was done. I needed to be heard, even if it meant sounding dramatic or making them uncomfortable. I knew they were going to be shocked by my words, but maybe that was exactly what it would take to finally make them see me. The response came quicker than I expected. My mom's text read, "We didn't realize it meant that much to you. We've always loved you, but you've always been so quiet about things. We thought you didn't want the attention." I could practically feel the guilt in her words, and maybe a little defensiveness too. She had always been the type to defend herself, especially when she thought she had done no wrong. But I didn't care about that. I didn't care about the excuses. This wasn't about her feeling guilty or explaining herself. This was about me finally standing up for myself after years of being ignored. I thought about replying, but I didn't. I was tired of talking. Tired of explaining myself. So, I left it at that and waited. A couple of days passed before my dad reached out. Unlike my mother, he wasn't as quick with the apologies. He wasn't one to apologize for anything unless it was absolutely necessary, and even then, it would be more of a "sorry you feel that way" kind of apology. His message was shorter, more to the point. "We've been busy. You know how things are. Let's talk when we're all together." That irritated me. Busy? Busy doing what? I had spent years silently wishing they would make time for me, and now they were trying to brush it all off because of how busy they were. I was done. I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't reply to him either. But that night, something truly unexpected happened. My brother called me. At first, I didn't even want to pick up. I wasn't ready for a conversation with him. He was the one who had always been the golden child, the one who got all the attention. I had no interest in hearing his usual smugness. But I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I picked up the phone. "What do you want?" I said flatly. There was silence for a moment, and then he spoke. His tone was softer than usual. I didn't know it was that bad," he said. "Mom told me what you wrote. I didn't realize you felt that way." It was the first time in years that I'd heard any real acknowledgement from him. I couldn't help but feel a little taken aback. Was he genuinely apologetic? Or was this just another one of his attempts to play the good guy and keep up the family image? "You didn't know?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've known. And so has everyone else. I've been invisible for years." He paused. "I don't think it was intentional, though. I mean, I'm sorry, okay?" I could feel a sincerity in his words, but I didn't trust it. He'd been getting everything for so long that I couldn't just let this one apology change everything. "It's not just about saying sorry," I told him. "It's about understanding. It's about seeing me. Really seeing me." Another silence hung in the air. My brother wasn't good at handling anything serious. He liked to brush things off, keep things light. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it this time. After a long pause, he finally sighed. "I get it. I do. But can we just talk about it more in person?" I almost said no. I didn't want to be near any of them right now. But then I thought about it. This could be my chance. Maybe, just maybe, this was my opportunity to finally confront the family. To make them understand how I felt. I took a deep breath and decided to give him a chance. I said. "We can talk. But don't expect me to forgive everything overnight, okay?" He replied, "I'll talk to Mom and Dad and we'll figure out a time." I hung up the phone feeling a mix of emotions, frustration, uncertainty, and maybe just a tiny glimmer of hope. Maybe this would be the breakthrough I needed. Maybe this time, they would finally understand. A few days later, we all agreed to meet at my parents' house. It wasn't the family dinner I had hoped for, but it was an opportunity, and I was determined not to let this slip through my fingers. When I arrived, my parents were already seated, waiting for me. My brother was there too, and it was clear they had all discussed this behind closed doors. The atmosphere was tense, even more so than usual. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what was coming. This wasn't going to be easy, but I had reached a point where I couldn't hold back anymore. As I sat down, my mom started, her voice unusually calm. "We're sorry. Really. We didn't mean to make you feel invisible. But, what do you want us to do about it?" My father chimed in, "We can't change the past, but we're here now. What's it going to take for things to get better?" I looked at them, the weight of years of hurt heavy in my chest. And I knew this was the moment that would either fix everything or break it completely. I stared at them, my mind racing. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The tension was palpable, and I could feel the weight of years of neglect and disappointment pressing down on me. They were waiting for me to say something, to tell them what they could do to fix it. But how could they fix something that had been broken for so long? I took another deep breath. "I don't want you to fix it," I finally said, my voice shaking slightly. "I don't need your apologies or your gifts or some big gesture. What I need is for you to see me. Really see me. I've spent my entire life in your shadows, watching you celebrate every little thing about him, and I've had nothing. Nothing." My mother's face fell, and I could see the guilt flicker across her features. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "I'm tired of hearing 'sorry' without any real change. I'm tired of being the one who quietly steps aside every time he gets the attention. When was the last time you asked about me, huh? Not just my grades or whether I was on track with my career, but me as a person." My dad shifted in his seat, looking uncomfortable. "It's not like that, honey. We've always tried to be there for you. You've always been so independent." "I wasn't independent," I snapped, my anger flaring up. "I was ignored. You never gave me the chance to need you because you were too busy worrying about him. You were too busy with his accomplishments to care about the things that mattered to me." I looked at my brother, who had been uncharacteristically silent through this entire exchange. His smirk was gone, replaced by a look of genuine confusion. I could tell he didn't get it. Maybe he didn't want to. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going to hold back. "Do you know how many birthdays I've had where you forgot? Do you know how many times I've had to celebrate alone or pretend that it didn't hurt? And now you're telling me that you're sorry? You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. You have to change." There was a long pause. My mom was on the verge of tears, and my dad was staring down at his hands. My brother was still looking at me like he was trying to understand what had just happened. I could tell he was confused, probably because he had never been on the receiving end of this. He had always been the one getting the attention, the praise, the approval. But I didn't care. I had nothing left to lose. "I don't want your pity," I said, my voice softening slightly. "I don't need you to feel sorry for me. What I want is for you to recognize me. For you to see that I'm just as deserving of love, attention, and respect as he is. I'm tired of always being second place. I've spent my whole life being second place." My brother finally spoke up, his voice hesitant. "I didn't know you felt like that. I really didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel like you were invisible. I never thought about it that way." I looked at him, my anger fading slightly. He seemed sincere, but that didn't mean everything was suddenly fixed. It was a start, but only a small one. "It's not just about you," I said, my tone softer now. "It's about all of you. You never noticed because you didn't want to notice. You were too caught up in your own little world to see that I was drowning in mine." My dad cleared his throat, leaning forward in his chair. "We never meant to hurt you, but I think we've been so focused on other things that we've forgotten how to prioritize what really matters. We'll work on it. We're not perfect, but we can try to do better." My mom wiped away a tear, looking at me with a mixture of regret and hope. "I know I haven't been the best mom to you. I thought I was doing everything right, but maybe I was too focused on what I thought you needed instead of what you actually needed. I'm sorry, and I promise I'll do better." I took in their words, but I wasn't sure if I believed them. Do better didn't feel like enough after everything I'd been through. But I wasn't sure what I expected either. Part of me wanted to hear them admit their mistakes, to truly own up to the years of neglect and favoritism. But I knew that wasn't realistic. They were never going to fully get it. It wasn't going to happen overnight. And part of me wondered if I was asking for too much. But even if they didn't fully understand, I wanted them to try. For once, I wanted them to try for me. I stood up, my chest tight, my emotions still raw, but somehow lighter. "I'm going to leave now," I said, my voice steady. "I don't want this to drag out. I'll think about what you said, but I need some time to process all of this." "Of course," my mom said softly, her voice trembling. "Take all the time you need. We're here whenever you're ready to talk more." I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything else. My brother stood up too, looking conflicted. "I really am sorry, okay? I want things to be better between us." I didn't respond. I couldn't respond. There was too much to say, too much hurt to unpack in one conversation. As I left their house, I felt a mix of emotions: exhaustion, anger, relief. Maybe this was the first step towards something better. Or maybe it was just another round of empty promises. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being heard. And that, at least, was something. I spent the next few days in a haze. My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions: anger, disbelief, sadness, but also a small, flickering hope. They had said the right things, and for a brief moment, it felt like things could change. But deep down, I wasn't sure. Could they really change? Could I trust them to finally recognize me? I didn't know the answer, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was even ready to forgive them. That was the hardest part of all this. The idea of forgiving people who had hurt me for so long. It wasn't just a single mistake or oversight. This was a lifetime of me being overlooked, ignored, and pushed aside. So despite their words, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were going to forget again. That in a few weeks, they would go back to the same old pattern, and I'd be left feeling invisible once more. But then something happened. A week after that tense dinner, I received a message. It wasn't from my parents or my brother, but from a relative I hadn't heard from in a while. My aunt, actually. I wasn't sure why she had reached out to me, especially considering how little we communicated in recent years. The message read, "Hey, just wanted to let you know your parents and brother have been talking about you a lot lately. They're feeling really guilty about how things went down at the dinner. They've been discussing ways to make it up to you, and they want to know if you'd be open to meeting up with them. They're sorry for everything and are willing to do whatever it takes." I stared at the screen, the message feeling like a cruel joke. They're feeling guilty? It wasn't some magic switch they could flip, and suddenly everything would be okay. If they were really sorry, I thought, why was it just now coming up? Why did they only realize the extent of how I felt after they saw how I reacted? And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a simple case of, "I'm sorry." This was a deep-rooted issue. It wasn't just my parents and brother that had to change, it was me too. If I was going to fix this, I couldn't rely on them to carry all the weight. I needed to decide what I wanted for myself and how I was going to move forward, whether that meant forgiving them or cutting them out completely. I didn't respond to my aunt's message. Part of me wanted to go, wanted to hear them out. But another part of me was terrified that they hadn't really changed at all. What if this was just another round of empty promises? What if they never actually saw me, and they were only saying the right things because they felt guilty and worried about losing me? I had always been the type to avoid confrontation. I would let things fester, let them build up until I couldn't hold it in anymore. But this time, I couldn't do that. I had to make a decision, even if it wasn't an easy one. The next day, I saw my brother at a family gathering. He had a slightly sheepish look on his face, as if he wasn't sure how to approach me. I didn't know what to say to him. Could I even trust him? Had he really understood what I had said that night, or was this just some passing guilt that would fade as quickly as it had appeared? "Hey," he said, hesitating before sitting next to me. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About everything. I really didn't know how bad it was. I guess I've always just assumed you were fine, you know? You never really made it clear that you were hurting." I nodded slowly. "I never made it clear because I didn't think you'd care." He winced at that. "I get it, and I really do feel bad about how everything went down. But I want to do better. I know it won't fix everything, but I want to start showing you that I care. I don't want you to feel invisible anymore." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But it felt like the same old cycle. How many times had I heard the same thing? How many times had they promised to do better, only for it to fall apart? "I'm not sure if I'm ready to believe you," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You've had plenty of chances to change before, and it's never stuck." "I get that," he said, his voice quiet now. "But I'm asking for a chance to prove it. I'll do whatever it takes, even if it takes time. I don't want you to feel like this anymore." I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the sincerity in his eyes. Maybe it was naive to think this could be the turning point, but I couldn't deny that I wanted to believe him. Maybe it was time to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was time to take that step. But just as I was about to respond, I saw my parents walking in. They weren't close enough to hear our conversation, but I could feel their eyes on us. And that's when it hit me. None of this would be fixed in a single conversation. My family had a lot of work to do, and so did I. It wasn't just about a dinner or a missed birthday. It was about years of damage, years of emotional neglect. "Look," I said, standing up suddenly. "I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I can forgive you all right now, but I do know that things can't stay like this. I'm not going to keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not." My brother stood up too, his expression pleading. "I get it. Just know that I'm here when you're ready. And I'll keep trying." I nodded, feeling a wave of exhaustion hit me. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive them yet, but at least I was starting to see that they were willing to try. Whether that would be enough, though, that remained to be seen. As I walked away from the gathering, my heart was heavy, and my mind was full of questions. Had this been a turning point? Or was I just setting myself up for more disappointment? Only time would tell. But I'm still navigating all this, and honestly, I'm curious what you all think. How would you handle a situation like this? Am I asking too much from my family? Do I give them another chance, or is it time to walk away for good? I'd really love to hear your thoughts.